Okay. So yeah, I just started recording. Hi everyone. So this meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So Hen, can you please repeat your question?
Okay, yes. So right now we have a CAP proposal about load-aware scheduling, and we include two plugins. Those two plugins may need to retrieve some real-time metrics such as average and standard deviation of CPU and memory usage for all nodes. And right now the design include a third party, which is called load watcher. So the load watcher needs to get those node metrics and keep them, store them. It's responsible to store them or keep them, and then to expose some APIs to our load-aware scheduling plugins. So those plugins can consume those data. So so I'm just wondering, like, because I know most of the companies have their own monitoring stack, such as Splunk and Prometheus by default, and those monitoring stack already kind of implement the functionality we want to rely on the third-party component called load watcher. So whether we should just include a package to support different popular monitoring stack, we should always just support the load watcher API.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so
yeah, I'll let Wei.
yeah, if I understand the problem correctly, so what Chen is mentioned is sort of a generic mechanism to officially add dependency to some external data, for example, the monetary data, in addition to the existing Kubernetes, the node, the pod, the API objects. So do you want to sort of either abstract layer to better, for those kind of data to be better consumed by the plugin? So I think Chen is mentioned it's kind of a generic mechanism, right?
Yeah. So in addition, so right now the load-aware scheduler plugins already support the load watcher API, but load watcher right now is not maintained by Kubernetes scheduler plugin repo. It's maintained by PayPal, right? And we initially designed that because we want to extend the data analysis part to more advanced algorithm, but right now those plugins still do not need to use those advanced algorithm, and what those plugins need is just some average and standard deviation of CPU and memory usage. So such aggregation was already so a lot of monitoring stacks already provide such aggregations. For example, Prometheus, you can query Prometheus to directly get the average standard deviation for a particular metric in a certain time window. And I think Splunk support that as well. And then, so in addition to support APIs going to the load watcher, should we support more? I mean, should we support like Prometheus APIs and Splunk APIs as well? So people who do not want to deploy load watcher can use their own monitoring stack directly.
So I don't know if anyone here is familiar with those mechanics, but I would suggest that you ask this question in SIG instrumentation, so you'll be able to get better insight. But I'm wondering if anyone on the call is familiar with load watcher and
yeah, load watcher is a component we proposed in the load-aware scheduling plugin CAP, and load watcher was just getting metrics from different monitoring stack and do the aggregation and expose it as the REST API to plugins. Expose like JSON data as in REST APIs to those load-aware scheduler plugins. So so if it's just doing the aggregation, such as taking the average and standard deviation, I think other monitoring stacks are also supporting that. Especially like when I talk to people from Red Hat, for example, and they OpenShift by default use Prometheus as a monitoring stack. So for them, it's just load watcher is a redundant component because it gets aggregated data from Prometheus and then expose it again within the scheduler, and then the scheduler plugins will consume data from load watcher. So for them, it's kind of a redundant component. But I mean, we designed it this way for a reason, because we think load watcher someday in the future might do things like more than average and standard deviation. It can do more advanced data analysis and aggregation. That's why we still keep that option in the cap. And I know, so most of the companies will probably use either Prometheus or Splunk or develop their own monitoring stack. And for all monitoring stack, they will expose data of some level of aggregation in REST APIs. So so if we add support in load-aware scheduler plugins for some popular APIs like Prometheus and Splunk, so people have flexibility, and then they are not limited to use only load watcher.
So I would say if you add this support, I assume through some configuration parameter, that would be, you would benefit the most, right? Because you would get users to test out your feature without having to deploy any extra things. So if you're willing to work on that, I don't see a reason why you couldn't.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. We are indeed planning to work on the support of, for example, Prometheus, because really there's a lot of people using Prometheus by default for their monitoring stack. And we definitely will leave the options as configurations to configure it either for Prometheus or for load watcher or for Splunk.
Can you send a link to the KIP on the chat, just so we're familiar with the context more? You mentioned that there's a KIP, right?
Yeah, yeah. The cap is Chimaran, the load.
Oh, Chimaran. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chen, I think to going forward, it's still a bit challenger to make load watcher or Prometheus. You can't assume them to be installed in the environment, right? So the best way forward is still that make it a parameter in the plugins and config the target URL so that in the plugin runtime you can fetch the data from the load watcher. And in the load watcher side, you can do whatever you want to aggregate and do what kind of other things, or to make it a more common framework to consume the kind of metric data. So that is, I think that's the reasonable way to going forward.
So Wei, could you repeat? So I didn't get.
Yeah, I mean, so right now the key part is how do you define your target load watcher so that the load watcher data can be consumed by plugin, right? So right now the option is that you have to define that as the parameter in your plugin arguments, right?
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, you are pursuing that make it more
more generic
part.
Yeah,
so, generic part, so that upon the, for example, the start of the scheduler, you are aware of that there is a component that can fit the monitoring data. So I think that eventual goal might be a little challenging right now, because you cannot assume those kind of components exist in your environment for all the consumers.
Yeah, that's true. So this,
Yeah.
we will still support load water definitely because we cannot assume everyone deploy Prometheus or Splunk, for example. But so for example, so what load water is mainly doing right now is the aggregation of data, right? It can get raw data from Kubernetes metric APIs and then keep it in a time window and do the aggregation. But such aggregation was also provided by Prometheus and Splunk. So what I'm suggesting is instead of like forcing the load-aware scheduler plugins to use only load water API, we can make it configurable. For example, like we can provide Prometheus endpoint and as an option, we can provide Splunk or Splunk API as endpoint as the option, and then we can denote which option you want to use when users deploy their plugins. Because all of those would be REST APIs, and all of APIs, all of those monitoring stack can return you the aggregated data we need.
So let me try to recap and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So you have now that we're looking at least I'm looking at the KIP, I'm looking at the graph. So you have a component called load watcher, which is like a pod or a service running outside the scheduler, exposing an endpoint for your plugin that is running in the scheduler to look up metrics, right?
Yeah.
Aggregated metrics. And you're saying that you want there is a possibility to basically not have load watcher at all,
yes,
and directly fetch these aggregated data from another endpoint. And you're saying that it could be Prometheus directly, or
yes.
And your question here is whether this is something useful or not, or how, or are you asking for advice on how to configure that?
So I think I know how to change the existing code to support that.
Okay.
It's just I would like to know general your opinion on whether the community will support that, or it's some features other people will like.
Yeah, I think you would want to get in touch with the KIP author and see their opinion on this one. But I don't see a reason, if you're able to abstract that interface inside the plugin, and then you provide different implementations, right? One that talks to load, like knows how to talk to load watcher, another one knows how to talk to Prometheus, etc. I don't see a reason why not. And as Wei mentioned, you could have a plugin parameter to allow you to select which exact endpoint for metric metrics you would configure the scheduler with. So it would be a static configuration, like when the scheduler starts up. So yeah, does that make sense? Am I on the same page?
Yeah, definitely. So you also help sort out the options to enable it. Yeah, this is something I want to do, and I just want to get everybody's opinion about it and see. So yes, we want to we actually want to support this option because most of our clusters are using Prometheus as the monitoring stack by default. I will probably talk to all the people we work together on the CAP, and then we will later bring this again.
Yeah, I would suggest you can open an issue under the scheduler plugins and get a discussion started there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Any other topics anyone wants to discuss? Okay, I guess we can end. Go ahead.
There is one announcement that I would like to share. This time, starting from this release, the release team, the SIG release, is not going to automatically track caps. We have to opt in. So at some point, we need to, as a SIG, we need to decide which caps we are gonna graduate or add to the release, and then we have to communicate that to SIG release. I don't know if you guys, if you saw this announcement, or you have any questions. Is it clear?
What is the date to decide? When is the deadline?
February 9th.
Oh, Chen, that's the Kubernetes/Kubernetes cap deadline, not the scheduled plugin
Oh, it's
caps. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So in that sense, I would like to ask the SIG if we have some particular caps we're already thinking of adding to this.
We have the random downscale one that I've been trying to get the feedback put in. I don't know if I'll target that for this release.
Yeah, we definitely want that, but that's more on SIG apps.
Oh, true. Right. Yep.
So we have the node namespace selector in pod affinity and affinity that I'm working on. So that's I think the only open cap under SIG scheduling so far I'm aware of.
Sounds good. From my side, I would like to add the V1 beta 2 component config, but that doesn't imply any new caps. So that's outside of that kind of tracking.
All right. Any other comments? Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Thank you.
See you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.